Hello and welcome to Going Off, a video series from Card Kingdom where we talk about the latest Magic the Gathering preview cards. I'm Hallie Santo, and joining me today are two friends of Card Kingdom whose work you may have seen on our blog. We have Mason Clark and Allie Warfield with us today. How are you doing, friends?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
Excited to be here. A lot of really cool cards to talk about and just a whole bunch to learn about, too.
As is tradition, I wanted to ask you both, since we're on Strixhaven, which of the 5 colleges do you two belong to?
I am definitely Lorehold. I actually took the quiz on Wizards' website, and this is what they gave me. And I was kind of surprised at first because I still have the guild stuck in my head, but reading more into Lorehold, it definitely fits.
I've never taken a test in my life, so it makes it really hard to figure out college, but Lorehold has this cool elephant card, so I'm all about Lorehold.
I get it. I also love elephants, so I totally get it.
They're so smart.
Absolutely. They never forget. I myself am a Silver Quill. I have a creative writing degree, so I think I'm required to be in Silver Quill, but I also just really like their fashion sense. They have this really cool chic style that I really appreciate. I wanted to start things off with a card that we saw previewed at the Call Time Championship last weekend, and this is basically Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa's World Champion card, Elite Spellbinder. What do you two think of this card so far?
I'm really excited to play with Elite Spellbinder. I think not only is it a really cool way to do a Vendilion click in the modern day, which is a great shout out to Paulo and his history, but I think this card really has the potential in Standard to throw off your opponent's curve, which is what games come down to so often in curving out, and making the ultimatum cost 2 more, or retaxing a Yorion they just put in their hand they wanted to blink their, Binding of the Old Gods with. I think it's going to be a really powerful and impactful play, and in older formats with things like Aether Vial and Historic having Collecting Company, I think this card has some real potential for some high-tempo plays.
Yeah, I agree with Mason. I think these cards are really cool. I love Enter the Battlefield effects, and I really just want to even play this in a Yorion deck and flicker it a lot of times.
I'm also a fan of ETB effects, so I'm right there with you. And yeah, I love this as a tempo play. Worth noting, it's also a human. So if you're playing a Tribal Humans deck, then this slots right in there.
Yeah, I do not want to play Modern when it comes back in person and get my in your draw step Elite Spellbinder you. Take your, impactful play. Goodbye, Primeval Titan.
Oh, poor Prime Time.
That sounds wonderful, actually.
Well, speaking of creatures with relevant typing for Modern, we have a new spirit called Strict Proctor, which unfortunately is going to cramp your style if you like creatures with Enter the Battlefield abilities, but it allows you to pay 2 if you don't want it to affect you and your creatures. What do we think of this card?
I'm super excited for this card. Not only is the spirit stuff cool, so maybe historic, but obviously modern, there's a spirit deck there, but also this effect of making you pay 2 unless the ability is countered is actually an upside with a lot of cards. The one that jumps out to my mind is Lotus Field. You don't actually have to sacrifice 2 lands if you play Strict Proctor ahead of time. Same for things like bounce lands. You don't have to bounce these to your hand. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do with this, and I'm excited to see Magic players kind of break, quote-unquote, this card once they get their hands on it.
I think it's also cool that you can end up playing this card in decks that you do have Enter the Battlefield abilities and still just choose to pay the 2, so it doesn't necessarily hurt your plan to be playing a card like Hushbringer.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. We see in formats like Historic, the Green-White Collecting Company decks have to play Hushbringer for certain matchups, like Muxus, for example, and that hurts their own cards. That deck would love to play Paulo's card. But if we have a couple extra mana, like that deck sometimes has, we can still get away with it. So that's a great point, Allie.
We have another really powerful white card, and this one is Clever Lumamancer. It's an 0/1 with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And I don't know about you both, but I'm getting some Monastery Swiftspear vibes from this card.
Yeah, I'm super excited to play Boros or Lorehold prowess in Modern and have this be your extra 1-drop. This card has a lot of real potential, I think, in that sort of deck. We've seen Kiln Fiend be a feature of those decks, and for a mana less and only 1 less power, you can still kill a lot of people on turn 3 pretty easily. And in older formats, there's some pretty fun stuff you can do with Magecraft, like Chain of Smog, like we talked about last week on the show with Liliana. Same thing works here. We turn 1 this, turn 2, target ourselves 20 times and attack them. So I'm super excited for this card.
Yeah, I'm getting big vibes from the Boros Feather deck back in the day, so maybe that's a thing that can help in Historic some more, as well as the Prowess decks that Mason was talking about. I'm not endorsing Feather, but that's where my mind jumped to.
I think we have one more white card that we wanted to cover today, and that's Star Pupil. And this is a new creature that can get counters and share its counters with other creatures. And Mason, you said this was possibly something you could use with Luminarch Aspirant.
Yeah, I think the mono white deck has shown that it's like a pretty good deck in the standard format, and it varies in power level. But this is a 1-drop that allows you to kind of have those aggressive draws early and not let the momentum stop when your creatures die. And one of the problems the deck's always had in the past is you Luminarch Aspirant, you kind of want to go all in on the same creature a bunch, so that, they have to kill that, but then you lose all the progress. Well, Star Pupil undoes that. But I think Star Pupil has just a lot of potential to just be a curve filler for the mono white decks. Works super well with Luminarch Aspirant. And if we wanted to go down some more extreme routes, like Conclave Mentor in this format and Winding Constrictor in Historic. And so maybe something along those lines where we're doubling our counters could be really exciting.
The next card we wanted to talk about is actually a reprint. This is Grinning Ignis. What set was this card originally printed in? Was it Future Sight?
It's our Future Shifted card from the set, the one they teased at us.
This is a card that looks like it has a lot of combo potential. It has had a lot of combo potential in the past, and it's going to be in Standard now and in Historic, so we'll have to see what combos that it can do there.
Yeah, it and Bergie kind of jump out to my mind as a way to get infinite cast triggers, and then you pick it up the last time and you grape shot them now in Historic. And in Standard, there's Crackling Power, or Crackle with Power, sorry. And that card will do X damage that you pay, and so that's a good way to, kind of build up your mana a little bit each time and then pop your opponent.
That's really fun.
So the next card we wanted to cover was a new uncommon creature called Symmetry Sage. It's an 0/2 flyer, but with its Magecraft ability, you can give target creature you control base power 2 until end of turn. And I'm assuming this means Symmetry Sage itself.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. And I think kind of the joke of the card, you opt and hit him for 2. It's the Blue Goblin Guide, as I'm now coining officially on the show. So it seems pretty strong to me, and I like that you can play it in like a mono blue tempo deck like we see in Historic. Has been kind of popular recently. Has the Wizard tag for Wizard Retort and turns our other little blue dinky creatures into 2 power hitters as well. So I think this card's super exciting.
It can give some creatures some extra power, and even if you don't have a spell that you can copy with it, you could still just play this on turn 1 and then put a Curious Obsession on it and go to town. So I'm pretty happy.
I do like this, maybe in like an Is It Prowess deck as well, just to have an actual 1-drop. I know a lot of those decks are almost starting at Sprite Dragon at some point, so this is a good starting point for the 1-drop slot.
And it's a human wizard. That wizard subtype might come in handy if you're playing cards like Wizard Retort or Wizard's Lightning.
Yeah, we saw Clover Lumamancer earlier in the show was a human wizard with 0/1 as well. Both these, since you're saying the base power 2, you still get all the bonuses, so it's going to work great with Soulscar Mage, Lumamancer, etc., etc. It's a super exciting card.
We have another blue card we wanted to talk about, and I haven't seen the official name for this card yet, but it's being translated as Test of Talent. It's a new counter spell that counters an instant or sorcery, but it allows you to search its controller's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that spell and exile them. That player does get to draw a card for each card exiled from their hand this way, but this has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I really like the implications of countering things from combo decks and getting rid of them or anything. Mostly like combo decks, yeah, if we're thinking about like modern. I am obviously thinking about Historic and just trying to get rid of anything like Mind's Desire that's being printed here as well.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I hate Sultai Ultimatum. I'm pretty tired of getting into the story. I'm tired of my creatures getting claimed the firstborn and Test of Talent. If I'm willing to take a little bit of risk for it, it's going to help me with all those problems, so...
Ultimatum decks were the first thing that I thought of when I saw this card, because it is narrow, but being able to take the most powerful instant or sorcery in their deck is pretty big game. So I'll be curious to see if this starts showing up in some sideboards.
I'm excited to Test of Talent my opponent's Test of Talent.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Awesome. We do have one other blue spell here we wanted to talk about, which is Solve the Equation. It's a sorcery that lets you search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. And I guess you could get a Test of Talent with this, but what else could we do with this card?
When I was thinking of this card, I was mostly, again, thinking about combo and historic because we're getting all of the combo cards, and this is kind of a way to just make that more consistent, facilitate grabbing your storm card or anything else you need to set up to combo out the opponent.
We're gonna see a lot of storm cards coming in historic now. We'll touch on those a little bit later. We wanted to talk about mystical archives at the end, but yeah, there's a storm of brewing in historic, and it's gonna be really interesting.
My brain's super excited for that storm.
The 1,000-year storm.
I love all storms: thunderstorms, 1,000-year storms, sailstorms.
There was one other card here that I wanted to talk about, and that is a double-sided card, actually. It is Augmenter Pugilist. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And Echoing Equation. This is a blue and green modal double-faced card. And I don't know about you all, but I'm a big fan of the card Terror of the Peaks. I have played many Genesis Ultimatum decks in Standard, and anytime I see a card like this, I just think of my dragon friend. And I don't know about you, but I would really like to have some turns where I have 8 lands in play, I play a Terror of the Peaks, and then I play an Augmenter Pugilist and just dome my opponent for 8. Like, that sounds really fun.
That does sound super exciting. That's one of the things that's pretty fun. I'm a little bit more of a memer, and so like Atracha the Silence, I believe is how you say her name, but the 3/5 from Old War of the Spark, that if you hit with 3 times with her, you win the game. That's what could jump to my mind with Echoing Equation.
Ooh.
For a little stream challenge for everyone out there, maybe a little Commander Brewski poo. But yeah, this card looks super exciting to me. It seems like there's a lot of big wow PogChamp moments with this one.
Well, speaking of cards that work really well with creatures, we have a new instant called Double Major. It's a blue-green card, and it allows you to copy a creature spell you control. That's a creature spell on the stack, not a creature on the battlefield. But it seems like it has a lot of upside and a lot of potential. What do you two think of this card so far?
Every time I see something like this that makes legendary creatures not legendary, I immediately try and think of what is the most broken legendary I want 2 of.
Yeah, this card's super interesting. It obviously, like, the thing it tries and tells you to do is, like, hey, figure out some 2 cards of combo with me, but if you also want to be one of those people, you could play a control deck where this is your win condition, you counter everything except the thing that you want to win with, and then you go off. My brain jumped to Corvald, though. I imagined some sort of, like, 4-color sacrifice deck using Goose as a way to make the blue mana off Double Major, and maybe, a Triome or something along those lines, but I'm not exactly sure what you can do with this deck, but with this card, but I'm sure there's a lot you can do with it.
I would also like 2 Corvolds, please. That sounds amazing. We have a couple more double-face cards we wanted to talk about. This one is the pair of Deans from Witherbloom, and that's Valentine and Lisette.
For this card, I was definitely thinking for Valentine about the exile part and historic again, especially with all of the popularity of all of the sacrifice decks and just more and more how every format feels like the graveyard is becoming more and more important. So being able to kind of disrupt that for just like a 1-drop creature feels pretty powerful to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would play if I would play Lisette by herself, but since you get Valentine kind of for free, it's nice that those 2 cards work pretty well together, and I think this card has a real chance to see play, and like Allie said, if we're seeing graveyards matter more and more, and if the graveyard becomes a really big important part of the deck, I would not be shocked to see this card in a lot of decks.
There was another modal double-face card we wanted to talk about, and that was actually previewed today. We're recording this on April 1st, so this is the newest one we've seen, and it is Selfless Glyph Weaver and Deadly Vanity. For this card, I'm a little more interested in the front side than the back side. I've definitely cast a Dune Blast, but I haven't cast a lot of 8-mana sorceries in my time. I'm just really excited about having a creature that can be really useful in sort of a go-wide creature strategy. And like we've talked about earlier, it has a relevant subtype being a human, so I'm excited to see what this card can do.
Yeah, it seems like a nice get for Renota decks as well. You know, a lot of people seem to forget that one's in standard, but she's there waiting for us to come back. And it's also a cleric, and clerics we've seen in each set get a little bit more each time. Like Righteous Valkyrie jumps out to me as one, and this card works really well with that, so I'm excited. And you know, Deadly Vanity, I wouldn't put that card in my deck, but I kind of get it for free, so maybe there'll be like 1 in a million games, or it wins me the game. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I really like effects like these for go-wide creature decks, especially in mono white. Unfortunately, in standard, it seems like a lot of the decks utilizing black mana are playing effects like board wipe effects that exile everything, so it might be less relevant there. But I know in historic, there's still a lot of Wrath of Gods and Doom Scars.
There was one other modal double-faced card that we saw previewed on Weekly MTG, and that is Milacrafty Companion and Luca Wayward Bonder. So this is a modal double-faced card with a creature on one side and a planeswalker on the other side, kind of like Valky and Tybalt in Call Time. And I'm curious if this card is going to be as impactful. What do you two think?
I gotta say, to start off with, when the companion thing hit and I saw Luca, I had flashbacks from a year ago now. It was scary, and I think this card, maybe not as good as those cards, but definitely looks to be one of the star players in the set to me. Just Mila's abilities, like, to protect the things that are being attacked and allow you to replace your cards, I think is super strong. And it's kind of something that I could see a lot of decks wanting to play in a beatdown style. And then Luca lets you have this creature that's pretty good on rate in the early turns of the game, and then late game allows you to buy back your other creatures, move through, and work towards actually winning the game. And it's very rare that you get a beatdown card that's actually good in the later game. And that's before we even get into any sort of crazy reanimator stuff with Luca, which I'm sure there's a lot of potential for there.
Mila seems really powerful just at a glance. Feels like I am not going to enjoy playing against this card.
Allie, do I feel crazy here saying I would play Mila and I get Luca on the house? Is that crazy, or is that just me?
No, I think you're onto something there. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about these modal double-faced cards. They have so much versatility, and so they allow you to play, you know, really variable games. You know, you can play some games where you're on the beatdown, and if you need to take a more controlling role, you could play the other side of the card. And I think these are great, not only for, you know, best of one games on Arena, which tend to be really variable, if any folks watching this like to play those. But yeah, I think these are just really great for, you know, any kind of deck that can pivot between being more aggressive and being more controlling.
Agreed. All accounts.
Awesome. Well, we wanted to wrap things up by talking a little bit more about Mystical Archive. We touched on it in the last episode of Going Off, but we had only scratched the surface of Mystical Archive at that point, and we've seen a lot of cards previewed since. Actually, we've seen all of the cards from Mystical Archive previewed since. And I'm curious, Allie and Mason, which your favorite cards have been for the Mystical Archive?
I think, as far as what's going to be the most impactful in Historic, my mind went to Faithless Looting. I think Faithless Looting is going to fundamentally change what Historic looks like. And then for my more fun card, I love Mind's Desire, and I'm really excited to see all the Storm decks that arise in Historic, and I think the Mind's Desire route is what I'm going to enjoy the most. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I kind of in agreement. I think Faithless Looting and, to a lesser extent, Brainstorm, which is a funny thing to say, are going to fundamentally change Historic. Looting is just an incredibly powerful card. We have so many decks that already love to use the graveyard and would love to have this sort of effect. It's going to be so easy to slot it in. And when it comes to broken cards, I think Tainted Pack's getting banned. That's the only card I've seen so far that wasn't pre-banned that I think will get banned. So that card just seems absolutely insane in Historic.
That's going to do it for this episode of Going Off. We've covered a lot of cards today, but if there were any cards we didn't cover, or if you have something to say about some of the cards we did cover, please leave a comment below. Let us know what you think, and subscribe to the channel so that you can catch future episodes of this show. We're going to be back next week with an episode all about Commander 2021, so tune in for that. And if you want to pre-order Strixhaven, you can at cardkingdom.com. You can pre-order Strixhaven cards, you can pre-order booster boxes, commander decks, all the Mystical Archive cards, they're all there, so be sure to check that out. And until next time, I've been Hallie.
I've been Allie.
And I've been Mason.
And we'll see you all again soon.